Greetings, friends. Was there a creation week? Well, maybe we need to clarify that, because it should really be classified as a recreation week. So-called the earth and everything in it was created in 7 days. But the Bible, through its theme, tends to indicate that the earth is an old earth. And I think unless churches and religious groups understand that Satan and or Lucifer at that time and the angels inhabited this earth before man, but they destroyed it. He lifted himself up, became proud, but resented God, the fact that he was down here on this little earth, and yet he'd had no part in the actual creation of it. It was rather the Word, or the Son, which became the Son, Jesus Christ, manifest in the flesh, but he was the Word, the Logos, who was with the Father from the beginning. It said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and through him wasn't anything made that was made. That's John 1. I could read it. I could read a lot of it actually. It's very beautiful. But anyway, yes, unless they come to realise that it didn't all just happen in that time frame of 7 days, I think they'll always have a conflict with science, because truly the earth could have been millions of years old before there was a recreation week and then man was put on earth. But it was recreated in that 7-day period, or 6 days, and then God rested the 7th day. But the creation week, it's known as, if you read in Psalms 104, Psalms 104, verse 29 to 30, thou hidest thy face, they are troubled, thou takest away their breath, they die and return to the dust. Thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created, thou renewest the face of the earth. So at some time God renewed the face of the earth. Now if we go back to Genesis, which really Genesis shouldn't be the first part of the Bible, in the beginning, because it should really be John, because the first chapter of that says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But that's man that have assembled these in the way that they thought best, and of course this was part of the Old Testament. It says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void. Now the Greek interpretation for that is in chaos, but it says, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, which indicated there was already a face of the deep in existence, meaning the waters, the oceans. So it was already here, but it had been in a destroyed state and in a state of chaos from the way Lucifer and the angels had left it, because they destroyed it because of his sin. He said, Lucifer said, I shall ascend above the stars of heaven, I shall be like the Most High. Because he was so beautiful, the Bible indicates that he was beautiful. His pride lifted up, and he obviously became narcissistic and resentful too, and therefore he went the wrong way and sinned. But he wasn't destroyed at that stage, because then you read later on in Job where he's still walking up and down in the earth, because he appears before God, and they sort of ask him, where has he been? He said, I've been walking up and down in the earth. So he still had access between heaven and earth. But his nature had fallen. He had already fallen because of his pride. So, yes, it says, and the darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So it's sort of an indication to me, when I read through the theme of the Bible and you look at it overall, that it appears that this earth may have been millions of years old before the fall of Lucifer, and then God recreated the earth that he'd destroyed and placed man on it. And then of course we know the story of how he tempted Lucifer, or as Satan then tempted the first woman and then the first man to go the wrong way. And in a way I believe that that was a way of God exposing his way. I mean, for all the other angels in heaven, because it says that only a third of them were deceived by him and they fell as well. But for all the other angels of heaven and heavenly beings, this idea of sin was new. They knew nothing about it. They couldn't see perhaps why things had gone wrong. And it's almost a way of God showing the universe and vindicating himself that sin leads to destruction of everything. It must be proved, God must be vindicated, and through man it's being shown now that they were given the opportunity by God to take of the tree of life. But in a way, in the garden, they were deceived by Satan, or Lucifer, then became Satan after the fall. And he brought destruction. And so he deceived the first man and the woman. They had the opportunity to take of the tree of life, but they ended up going the wrong way and going Satan's way. And then of course they decided that they didn't want God in their affairs. They could see then that they were naked because they were guilty. They felt guilty and ashamed and embarrassed because God, or Jesus Christ, walked with them in the garden. Christ was in the garden with them, and he corresponded with man and woman before the fall. And they realised then that they really didn't want God to rule over them. They virtually, putting it in kid speak, they virtually said to God, look, we'll make up our own mind what's right and what's wrong. We really don't need you to tell us this. So, and of course, they'll go off and form their own governments, their own rulers and leaders. And that's what they did. But, God always said that the day that thou eatest thereof the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt surely die. So they took to themselves the knowledge of good and evil, what's right and what is wrong. But they didn't take of the tree of life, because God closed up the tree of life, shut off the garden that they were put in, and drove them out, and put cherubims with flaming swords to stop every which way from man from getting back into the garden. So, yes, that's the way I see it in the Bible, and I think if religious groups and churches and the churches of today can't come to grips with that, then I think they'll always be at loggerheads with science about a young Earth or an older Earth, because I do believe the Earth could have been here for millions of years before God recreated it all and put man on it. And of course, one thing God cannot do is create a perfect righteous character by fiat. That's something that has to be learnt. So God is actually recreating himself through mankind. We have to see how sin leads to destruction, so that in the new heaven and the new earth that will never occur again, because we will know and we'll have been educated to know that that is wrong and it leads to death and destruction. So anyway, just a short summary. I thought, I hope it wasn't too fragmented for you to grasp onto. And I'd just like to say thanks for coming along. God bless you. Goodbye for now, friends. Goodbye.